Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Planet Tyro. I'm your host Donald Wonder, and we're going to have a very special discussion today because I'm going to give this little discussion out. I'm going to give a shout out to my ladies. You ladies doing it out there. We're going to have a special book just for you. You know, fellas, you can check this one out too. But we're going to check out a very special book dedicated to the ladies out here. We're going to be talking about an anthology book, which is a collection of 21 original short stories and novellas and just a lot of creative minor stories in a collection of a book called Dangerous Women. Now, although this book features a slew of different authors from all styles and genres from the book realm, the two gentlemen who helmed and edited this project together are actually the very well-known and world-renowned respected authors, creators, editors. The first one is Garner Dozies. Am I saying that right? It's a hard name to pronounce. I do apologize for butchering your name. But probably more well-known is Game of Thrones creator, the beloved, the worshipped George R.R. Martin. So the idea of this book, Dangerous Women, is it's going to be, well, these guys wanted to create a showcase of female characters in stories where they are a pivotal role in the tale, and to show that women can be more than just, you know, a damsel in distress or, you know, something more stereotypical. That women can be awesome. They can be cunning, they can be heroic, they can be devious, and they can be just intriguing in all types of worlds, in all types of literature, in all types of genres. And this book collects a lot of stories from all across the world, all across these different ideas, and puts it in one place. We're talking like fantasy, mystery, sci-fi, western, supernatural, historical, modern drama. It really does cover everything. And I'll tell you right now, man, this book is dense. I mean, to call it a book might be a little bit misleading because actually the book is sold, well, in the physical form, it's sold in 3 volumes. Now, as usual, I listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook was like 48 hours. So it was a long read, but you know, in anthologies, you're going to get a lot of variety. So it's not like I was listening to one story. There was a lot of chances for me to stop and start, but just giving you guys a head up, it's a long read. And you know, I guess picking it up in the parts, the 1 or 2 parts they've broken up into, might be the best way to get a taste to start things off. So now you got the idea. After finally finishing the anthology, what do I think about it personally? Well, here's the thing. Anthologies are great at giving you variety, as I mentioned before, because, you know, you've got tales that are from multiple authors. It's not just 1 or 2. This book, I think, has got 11 or 12 authors. So you're gonna find something you like. There's a chance you're at least gonna find 2 or 3 stories, and this is 21 stories, so it's a massive collection that, again, you're bound to find something in. So what I will say, if you're asking me how much of these stories did I like, of the 21, I found 9 that I really enjoyed, that were pretty excellent. 9 that were excellent, 4 that were okay to good, and the other 8 was hit and miss. Some of them I didn't like at all, some of them were just forgettable, and some of them were boring, and that's me being honest. So if you look at it as a game of numbers, really for me, over half of the book was enjoyable. So honestly, I see that as a positive thing. But again, I must stress that these stories are quite meaty, and some of them are longer than others. Some of them are novellas, some of them are short stories, so there's no way to tell which you're gonna like. And the ones I liked and the ones I didn't like, they're all mixed. It wasn't like I had a batch of good ones, a batch of bad ones. Through the 21s, you know, 1 I liked, 2 I liked, 3 I liked, 1 I didn't, stuff like that. So it was completely random. But honestly, it wasn't a hard listen to. It wasn't a hard read. It's just something that I just got through, ultimately. For those of you who read the book and are curious to stories that I actually liked, I'll just give you a few examples. There was one story about 2 wrestlers fighting over 1 woman, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal. There was one about a man who picks up a woman at a bar who has some really weird sexual issues in his past as well. That was a really great story. A man whose identity was apparently stolen and he's in royalty. Again, I don't want to get into spoilers, but that was a really great one. And I think it was actually narrated by the guy that's in Star Trek. I believe it was him. His voice is a dead ringer. If I'm wrong, then, you know, I'm wrong, but I'm 100% sure it was him. But I have to say, man, the best thing about the book is that it started off strong. The very first story you hear is about a woman with a bounty on her head, a woman on the run, and that this first story is absolutely excellent. This woman on the run, she ain't no weakling, and the way she deals with the people that are chasing her, man, if you saw, I'm starting to think of that last Quentin Tarantino movie and this crazy woman in that, but no, this woman is, I guess you could say, is kind of in that realm, but man, this woman takes no shit, and I just love that first story, and the first 3 or 4 stories were strong. It started off really strong. To be fair, if I had to make a complaint or something that kind of threw me off a little bit, when you start the book, it starts off with a little opening explaining what the book is going to be about we're going to focus this book on women, strong women of all genres. But when you actually get to the stories themselves, sometimes the women are not the focal character in the story. And what I mean, they're not the main character, but the women in every story, there's always a focal woman. But sometimes, as I said before, it can be a story about men where the woman plays a central part. Now, to be honest with you, I kind of think it's more realistic to do it like that, because if I read this book and all it was, story after story after female heroines or females, I guess it would seem a little bit over feminine and very pick and choose. But no, these were stories that seemed like they were really created and really picked, not for highlighting a woman, but showing that you can put a woman in the forefront, in the back, on the side, and they are interesting characters. And I think from a writing perspective, that's more fair and more believable. And I think it honors the concept of what they're trying to do to put women forward in stories. So I appreciated that. It did throw me because I was expecting them to always be the main character. But to be fair, in retrospect now, I think it's more honest, is what I'm saying. I don't want to get into spoilers on this discussion, so, I would go into detail on some more stories. But the bottom line is, as I said before, I thought 9 of the 21 stories were really great. And as a result, there's more good than bad here. And there wasn't anything atrocious in the story. There was just some that I didn't really care for. Again, it's a genre thing. You might not like the genre, but the best thing about reading an anthology is you're always going to find new authors or an author you might not even heard of, and you like their writing style. So from reading this anthology, I actually found 4 or 5 authors that I'm really going to look into, and their side stories were excellent. I mean, there was one that was the Discworld series as well. I was never really into the Discworld series, but the author wrote a story from that series in this, or added it to this anthology, and it was really good. And I thought, you know what? I want to check out Discworld because I like the writing style. So, enough said. I would give the book series a solid B. It's definitely worth checking out. It's a very dense book, but it's a short story book. So, you can read one story, put it down, come back, read another one. But honestly, for what they're doing, I think it's cool. The majority of it I liked, but again, this is just me personally. Someone else might read it and love the whole thing. I just thought half of it was really great. And speaking of George R.R. Martin, he did edit it. At the end of the book, it did end with a Game of Thrones story. Now, if you guys listened to my Game of Thrones discussion on the TV series and the books before, I like Game of Thrones conceptually, but I think it's a story just all about treachery. That's basically it. It's, all it comes down to is very unlikable characters. All right, let me, that's a bit oversimplifying. It's a very good complex story, and I like the realistic, gritty take on it, but most of it just comes down to betrayal, treachery, murder, rape. It's just a lot of negativity. It gets kind of played out, and as a story, there's no one you can really follow. This Game of Thrones story he put in here is actually 200 years before the current book or TV series, so you learn a lot of history about Game of Thrones. To the story's credit, it was not boring. I'll tell you that much. Game of Thrones, you will never call Game of Thrones boring. It was action-packed. There was a lot more fantasy elements in this story. In this past story, there was a lot of dragons. There was a lot of trickery, the same old stuff with the backstabbing and stuff. But there was a lot of action. I wasn't bored. But as usual with Game of Thrones, I got lost in the source. And after a while, I didn't really care. And there was a whole bunch of characters that were just being murdered. Murder after murder after murder. So I just didn't care for the story. It wasn't hard to listen to. But after a while, just like with the TV series, I just tended not to care anymore. I just thought, yeah, I could listen to it, but I could really give a shit about the characters. They're all evil, they're all arseholes, they all stab each other in the back. So, I know people hate me for criticizing the holy Game of Thrones, but again, I just, it was nice they ended it on that story, and it was the longest story. It was a nice Game of Thrones, a nice little history there. But I'm not going to hold it against the book on the whole. I love what these two guys did, putting this anthology series together, all for women, which is really good. If you're a woman, if you're a female who wants to read more compelling, powerful, positive stories for females, or, you know, stories that, you know, make you a stronger person, or put women in the better light across all means. Not even put them in the better light, just make interesting stories for women. This is your book. As a man, I thought it was great. Like I said, it wasn't just focused on women, but they were pivotal. The women were pivotal characters in each and every story, and it was edited by two men. So, you know, I think it's completely full circle there. I enjoyed it. I gave it a solid B. If you read the story, let me know what you think. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. And I will say, for the record, if you have an anthology you highly recommend, leave it in the comments down below. I think this is the first time I've reviewed an anthology on Planet Tyro, and I want to do more because it helps me actually find new content and new authors. So this is impressive. This was really cool. And I want to thank my buddy Sam and my sister for recommending this to me. It's got really high remarks on Goodreads, and now I can see why. You know, I'm a picky guy. I gave it a solid B, so the general audience probably give it a Hall of Fame. They love it to death. But, you know, guys, if you like the video, if you like my comments, if you like my thoughts, if you just like what we do here on Planet Tyro, we would appreciate it if you subscribe. Become a subscriber, become a Tyron of Planet Tyro. Don't forget to leave a comment down there, and, you know, hit that like button if you liked it. But anyway, guys, I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for listening. If you're listening on iTunes, we always appreciate you guys subscribing to our iTunes feed. If you're on YouTube, hey, this is where we started. And the video's been long enough. I'll see you on the next one, guys. We'll see you back here on Planet Tyro. Take care. Peace out.